Welcome to Tales by FELIX, where every story unlocks a new world. Remember to subscribe, like and share. Let's begin. Baby Powder. At 28, she felt like she was living a dream. Her husband, David, a lanky architect with a contagious laugh, was in the living room, cooing at their 3-month-old daughter Lily, whose giggles were a melody Amara could listen to forever. "Amara, this girl's got your eyes," David called, his voice warm. Big, brown, and ready to charm the world. She laughed, stirring the rice. "And your dimples, thank God. She's perfect." Their newlywed bliss was palpable, a bubble of joy that had only grown since Lily's arrival. The tiny apartment, with its peeling paint and mismatched furniture, felt like a palace. But there was one cloud on the horizon. Amara's mother, Ngozi, was moving in today to help with the baby. Amara's relationship with Ngozi had always been strained. Growing up, Ngozi's sharp tongue and constant criticism had chipped away at Amara's confidence. "You're too loud, Amara," she'd snap, or, "Why can't you be more like your cousin Ifeoma?" Yet, when Ngozi offered to stay for a few weeks, David had been all for it. "She's Lily's grandmother," he'd said the night before, his arm draped over Amara as they lay in bed. "She wants to bond. Maybe this is a chance to mend things." Amara had forced a smile. "Maybe." But her stomach twisted. She wanted to believe Ngozi's intentions were pure, that grandmotherly love would soften the edges of their past. Still, a nagging unease lingered, like a whisper she couldn't quite hear. The doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. Amara wiped her hands on a dish towel and opened the door. Ngozi stood there, her petite frame draped in a starched Ankara dress, her face unreadable. Her eyes, dark and piercing, flicked past Amara to the apartment. "Amara," Ngozi said, her voice clipped. "You've let this place get cluttered." Amara's smile faltered. "It's just lived in, Mama. Come in." Ngozi stepped inside, her suitcase rolling behind her. She scanned the room, her gaze landing on David, who was bouncing Lily on his knee. "There's my granddaughter," she said, her tone softening in a way that felt rehearsed. She reached for Lily, and Amara's instinct was to step forward, but she stopped herself. "Careful, Mama," she said lightly. "She's just eaten." Ngozi's eyes narrowed briefly, but she took Lily, cradling her with an odd intensity. "I raised you, didn't I? I know how to handle a baby." David grinned, oblivious to the tension. "We're so grateful you're here, Mama. Amara's been exhausted." Ngozi's lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Of course, David. Family helps family." As Amara watched her mother hold Lily, a chill crept up her spine. She shook it off, blaming it on hormones. This was a fresh start, she told herself. What could go wrong with a doting grandmother around? 2 weeks later, Amara was questioning her sanity. Ngozi had taken over the apartment like a general commanding an army. She insisted on bathing Lily, preparing her bottles, even choosing her outfits. "You're doing it wrong," she'd say when Amara tried to swaddle Lily, her voice dripping with authority. "Let me show you." At first, Amara was grateful. She was bone-tired, her nights fractured by Lily's cries. But gratitude was giving way to irritation. Ngozi's help felt like control, and her subtle jabs were relentless. One morning, Amara was breastfeeding Lily in the living room when Ngozi walked in, a tray of tea in her hands. "You're still nursing?" she asked, her tone laced with disapproval. "Formula would give her more strength." "She's too small." Amara's jaw tightened. "The doctor says she's perfect for her age." Ngozi set the tray down with a clink. "Doctors don't know everything. I raised you on formula, and you survived." Amara bit her tongue, focusing on Lily's tiny hand curled around her finger. She didn't want to argue, not in front of David, who was already at work. But the tension was suffocating. Lily, too, seemed unsettled. She'd always been a calm baby, but lately she was fussy, her cries sharp and desperate. Amara noticed it most when Ngozi was alone with her. One evening, after Ngozi had spent the afternoon with Lily while Amara ran errands, she returned to find Lily red-faced and screaming. "What's wrong with her?" Amara asked, rushing to take her daughter. Ngozi shrugged, wiping her hands on her apron. "Babies cry, Amara. You're too sensitive." But Amara wasn't convinced. She rocked Lily, whispering soothing words, and noticed a faint sour smell on her breath, unlike the usual milky sweetness. "Did you give her something?" Ngozi's eyes flashed. "What are you accusing me of?" "I fed her the bottle you left." Amara backed off, feeling foolish. But the unease grew. She started watching Ngozi more closely, noting how she'd hover when Amara fed Lily, how she'd insist on preparing special purees for the baby, claiming they were better than store-bought. One night, as she and David lay in bed, Amara voiced her concerns. "I don't know, David. Something feels off. Lily's not herself when Mama's around." David sighed, rubbing his eyes. "Amara, you're exhausted. Ngozi's just trying to help. She loves Lily. But what if it's not love?" Amara whispered, her voice trembling. "What if it's something else?" David pulled her close. "You're overthinking. Let's give it time." Amara nodded, but sleep eluded her. She stared at the ceiling, listening to Lily's soft breaths from the crib beside her, and vowed to trust her instincts. Lily's fussiness escalated into something terrifying. One sweltering afternoon, Amara found her daughter burning with fever, her tiny body limp in her crib. Panic seized her as she rushed Lily to the hospital, David meeting her there, his face pale. The pediatrician, Dr. Okoye, ran tests, but the results were inconclusive. "It could be a viral infection," he said, his brow furrowed. "We'll monitor her, but she should improve with rest." Lily did improve, but only briefly. Over the next week, she developed a rash, red, angry patches that spread across her chest. Then came bouts of lethargy, her bright eyes dull and unfocused. Amara's diary became her lifeline, a spiral notebook where she recorded every symptom, every feeding, every moment Ngozi was alone with Lily. One evening, as Amara sat by Lily's crib, Ngozi appeared in the doorway. "You're hovering too much," she said, her voice cold. "You'll make her worse with your worry." Amara's grip tightened on the diary. "She's my daughter, Mama. I'm doing what I have to." Ngozi's lips thinned. "You think you know better than me? I've been a mother longer than you've been alive." The words stung, but Amara held her ground. "I'm not questioning your experience. I'm questioning why my baby's sick." Ngozi's eyes darkened, but she turned away without a word. Amara's heart pounded. She flipped open her diary, scanning the entries. A pattern emerged. Lily's worst episodes always followed Ngozi's special feedings. She confronted David that night, her voice low but urgent. "David, look at this." She shoved the diary under his nose, pointing to the dates. "Every time Mama feeds her alone, Lily gets worse." David frowned, reading the entries. "It's a coincidence, Amara. You're seeing things that aren't there." "Am I?" she snapped, tears stinging her eyes. "My baby's suffering, and you're dismissing me?" David softened, pulling her into a hug. "I'm not dismissing you. I just... Ngozi's family. Why would she hurt Lily?" Amara didn't have an answer, but the question haunted her. Why indeed? Amara's doubts solidified into a quiet obsession. She couldn't shake the image of Ngozi's face when she'd questioned her about Lily's feeding, defensive, almost smug. She started keeping Lily closer, refusing Ngozi's offers to babysit. One afternoon, while Ngozi was at the market, Amara sat with David at the kitchen table, Lily napping in her arms. "I need you to back me up," she said, her voice steady. "I don't trust her with Lily anymore." David ran a hand through his hair. "Amara, this is getting out of hand. She's your mother. You're accusing her of... what exactly?" "I don't know." Amara's voice cracked. "But I know something's wrong. Why does she insist on making Lily's food? Why won't she let me help?" David hesitated, his eyes searching hers. "Okay. Let's watch her. But we need proof, not just feelings." Amara nodded, relieved he was finally listening. That night, she stayed up, scouring online forums for answers. She typed "unexplained infant illness" into a parenting group and described Lily's symptoms. Responses flooded in: teething, allergies, colic, but one comment stopped her cold. "Have you ruled out poisoning? Some toxins mimic common ailments." Poisoning. The word lodged in her throat. It was unthinkable, yet it fit. She bookmarked the comment, her hands shaking. The next day, Amara watched Ngozi like a hawk. When Ngozi prepared Lily's puree, Amara lingered in the kitchen, pretending to clean. "Can I help, Mama?" she asked, keeping her tone light. Ngozi's hand froze mid-stir. "No need. I've got it." "But I want to learn," Amara pressed, stepping closer. "What's in this one?" Ngozi turned, her smile tight. "Just fruits and a little something extra for strength. Go rest, Amara." Amara's skin prickled. A little something extra. She filed the phrase away, her resolve hardening. Amara's suspicion became a living thing, gnawing at her. She needed proof, something tangible to confirm or dispel her fears. One afternoon, while Ngozi napped, Amara crept into the kitchen. She'd seen Ngozi cleaning a baby bottle the previous day, her movements frantic, and that strange vial in her apron had haunted her dreams. The kitchen was spotless, the air heavy with the scent of bleach. Amara opened drawers, checked cabinets, her heart racing. Nothing. She was about to give up when she noticed Ngozi's apron hanging on a hook. With trembling fingers, she reached into the pocket. Empty. Looking for something. Amara spun around. Ngozi stood in the doorway, her eyes cold. Amara's mouth went dry. "I needed a spoon." Ngozi's gaze flicked to the apron, then back to Amara. "You're acting strange, Amara. Is something wrong?" "No," Amara lied, forcing a smile. "Just tired." Ngozi didn't move, her stare unnerving. Finally, she turned away. "Mind the baby. She'll wake soon." Amara waited until she heard Ngozi's footsteps fade, then sank against the counter, her breath ragged. She was close, she could feel it. That night, she searched Ngozi's room while David kept her occupied. Under a pile of clothes in the closet, her fingers brushed a small, locked box. Her pulse skyrocketed. She pried it open with a hairpin, revealing a collection of unlabeled vials and a tiny dropper. "What are you?" she whispered, holding a vial to the light. It was odorless, colorless, but its presence screamed danger. She pocketed one vial, replaced the box, and vowed to get it tested. Ngozi was hiding something, and Amara would expose it, no matter the cost. Amara's world had narrowed to a single focus, protecting Lily. The vial she'd stolen from Ngozi's locked box burned a metaphorical hole in her pocket, hidden in a zipped compartment of her purse. She hadn't told David yet. His skepticism about her suspicions made her hesitate, but she couldn't ignore the evidence any longer. Lily's worsening symptoms, the strange patterns in her diary, and now this unlabeled vial pointed to something sinister. In their Lagos apartment, the air felt heavy with secrets. Amara sat cross-legged on the living room floor, Lily asleep in her crib, as she scrolled through her phone. She joined more online forums, typing frantic queries about infant poisoning. One response, from a user named MamaBear23, sent chills down her spine. Slow-acting toxins can mimic chronic illness. Get anything suspicious tested by a lab. Trust your gut. Amara's gut was screaming. She Googled private laboratories in Lagos, finding one that offered discreet toxicology screenings. The cost was steep, nearly half their monthly rent, but she didn't care. She'd sell her wedding ring if it meant saving Lily. That evening, as Ngozi chopped vegetables in the kitchen, Amara watched her from the doorway. The rhythmic thud of the knife felt like a countdown. Ngozi's movements were precise, almost mechanical, her face a mask of calm. Amara's skin prickled, remembering the vial's cold glass against her fingers. "Lily's been quiet today," Ngozi said without looking up. "You're lucky she's such an easy baby." Amara forced a smile, her heart racing. "She's not easy, Mama. She's sick. You've noticed, haven't you?" Ngozi's knife paused mid-chop, a flicker of something, annoyance? Fear. Crossing her face. "Babies get sick, Amara. You're making a mountain out of a molehill." "Maybe," Amara said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "But I'm taking her to a specialist tomorrow. Just to be sure." Ngozi's eyes met hers, sharp and unyielding. "Waste of money. But do what you want." Amara turned away, her pulse hammering. She needed to get that vial tested before Ngozi suspected anything. Later, in bed, she whispered her plan to David, who was half asleep, his arms slung over her waist. "I found something in Mama's room," she said, her voice barely audible. "A vial. I'm getting it tested." David propped himself up, his brow furrowed. "A vial? Amara, you went through her things." "I had to," she hissed. "Lily's getting worse, and you won't listen." He rubbed his face, exhaustion etched into his features. "Okay, get it tested. But if it's nothing, you need to let this go. You're tearing yourself apart." Amara nodded, but she knew she couldn't let it go. Not until she had answers. The next morning, she slipped out while Ngozi was at church, dropping the vial at the lab with strict instructions for confidentiality. The technician, a kind-eyed woman, promised results in 48 hours. Amara drove home, her mind racing. What if the vial was harmless? What if it wasn't? The uncertainty was a knife twisting in her chest. Amara's paranoia grew as she waited for the lab results. She kept Lily glued to her side, refusing Ngozi's offers to feed or bathe her. Ngozi noticed, her comments growing sharper. "You're smothering that child," she snapped one afternoon, stirring a pot of egusi soup. "She needs space to breathe." "She needs her mother," Amara shot back, cradling Lily. The baby's rash had faded, but her lethargy persisted, her tiny body heavy in Amara's arms. Ngozi's lips thinned, but she said nothing, returning to her cooking. Amara's eyes lingered on the apron Ngozi wore, the same one where she'd seen the vial. Was there another? She needed to know. That night, with David working late and Ngozi asleep, Amara crept back into her mother's room. The closet smelled of mothballs and lavender, a cloying mix that made her gag. She found the locked box again, hidden under a stack of folded Ankara fabrics. Her hairpin trick worked, the lock clicking open with a soft snap. Inside, her breath caught. There weren't just one or two vials. There were 6, each identical, nestled alongside a tiny dropper and a faded photograph. Amara picked up the photo, her hands trembling. It showed 2 young women, twins, their smiles radiant. One was Ngozi, unmistakable in her sharp cheekbones. The other, with softer eyes, must be her sister. Amara's heart stuttered. Why would Ngozi keep this here, with these vials? She pocketed another vial, her mind spinning. The dropper gleamed under the dim light, its tip stained faintly brown. She imagined Ngozi using it, dripping something into Lily's bottle, and bile rose in her throat. She closed the box, replaced it carefully, and slipped out, her legs shaking. Back in her room, she hid the second vial with the first, locking them in a jewelry box. She couldn't sleep, her mind replaying the photo, the vials, Ngozi's cold stare. She texted the lab, begging for faster results, then curled around Lily's crib, whispering, "I'll protect you, my love. I swear it." The lab results came 2 days later, a call that stopped Amara's heart. She was in the market, weaving through stalls of yams and peppers, when her phone buzzed. The technician's voice was grave. "Mrs. Okeke, we found traces of a slow-acting toxin in the sample. It's not something you'd find in household products. You need to contact the authorities." Amara's knees buckled, and she leaned against a stall, the world blurring. "Are you sure?" she whispered. "Positive," the technician said. "We're sending the report now. Be careful." Amara hung up, her hands shaking as she opened the emailed report. The toxin was a rare compound, odorless, tasteless, designed to cause chronic illness over time. Lethal in high doses. Her vision tunneled. Ngozi had been poisoning Lily. She drove home in a daze, the report burning in her mind. Ngozi was in the living room, rocking Lily, humming a lullaby that now sounded like a dirge. Amara's rage boiled over. She snatched Lily from Ngozi's arms, the baby stirring with a soft cry. "What's wrong with you?" Ngozi demanded, standing. "You're acting mad." Amara clutched Lily, her voice trembling with fury. "I know what you've been doing." She pulled the first vial from her pocket, holding it up. "What is this, Mama? What have you been giving my daughter?" Ngozi's face froze, her eyes darting to the vial. For a moment, Amara thought she'd deny it, but then Ngozi's lips curled into a chilling smile. "You're smarter than I thought," she said. "You were," she murmured, her voice low and mocking. Amara's blood ran cold. "What did you do?" she screamed, stepping forward. What's in these vials? Ngozi didn't flinch. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. You want the truth, Amara? You're not ready for it. Tell me. Amara's voice broke, tears streaming down her face. Why are you hurting my baby? Ngozi's smile widened, her eyes gleaming with something dark and triumphant. Because you don't deserve her. You don't deserve anything. Amara stumbled back, clutching Lily so tightly the baby whimpered. Her mind reeled, the room spinning. She wanted to run, to call the police, but her feet were rooted to the floor, trapped by the weight of Ngozi's words. Ngozi's laughter filled the room, high and brittle, like glass shattering. Amara stared, horrified, as her mother sank into the couch, her composure unraveling. You want to know what they are? Ngozi said, her voice eerily calm. They're your freedom. They're my revenge. What are you talking about? Amara whispered, clutching Lily to her chest. Her mind screamed to flee, but she needed to hear it, needed to understand why. Ngozi leaned forward, her eyes glinting with malice. You think you know me, Amara? You know nothing. Sit down. This is a story you'll want to hear. Amara hesitated, then sat on the edge of a chair, her body tense. Ngozi's voice took on a chilling cadence, as if recounting a tale she'd rehearsed for years. I didn't want you, Amara. You weren't mine to be mine. You're not my daughter. The words hit like a slap. What do you mean? Amara gasped, her voice barely audible. Yes, Ngozi said, her smile cruel. You're the child of my twin sister, Ada. She stole everything from me, my love, my life, my future. And you were her parting gift. Amara's world tilted. You're lying, she whispered, but Ngozi's certainty was a blade, cutting through her defenses. Am I lying? Ngozi laughed, a sound that made Lily whimper. You think I wanted to raise my sister's bastard? Ada seduced Emeka, my fiancé, while I planned our wedding. When she died, I was saddled with you. You were my punishment. Amara's tears fell silently, her mind scrambling to process the revelation. Ngozi's confession wasn't just about Lily, it was about a lifetime of hatred aimed at her. Ngozi's words hung in the air, each one a poison of its own. Amara's heart pounded in her ears as her mother continued, her voice dripping with venom. Ada was always the favorite, the one everyone loved. She took Emeka, knowing it would break me. When she died in that car crash, I thought I'd won. But then Emeka begged me to raise you. You, with her eyes, her smile. A living reminder of my pain. Amara's voice shook. So you poisoned my child? Because of something that happened before I was born. Ngozi's eyes flashed. Poisoned? Oh, it's not just Lily, Amara. It's just the final act. I've been poisoning your life since the day you drew breath. Amara's stomach churned. She remembered her childhood, friends who drifted away, boyfriends who left without explanation, moments where she felt unworthy, unloved. What did you do to me? She whispered, her voice breaking. Ngozi leaned back, her smile serene. Little things. Words to make you doubt yourself. Lies to keep you isolated. I made sure you'd never feel the happiness you took from me. And when you found David, when you had Lily, I knew I had to act. You didn't deserve them. Amara's vision blurred with tears. She looked at Lily, asleep in her arms, and a surge of protectiveness overwhelmed her. You're a monster, she said, her voice low and fierce. Ngozi shrugged, unfazed. Call me what you want. I did what I had to do. The front door creaked open, and David stepped in, his briefcase dropping with a thud. What's going on? He asked, his eyes darting between Amara's tears and Ngozi's chilling calm. Amara turned to him, her voice trembling. She's been poisoning Lily. She's not my mother. She's evil. David's face paled as Ngozi's laughter filled the room again, a sound that would haunt them all. The truth was out, and there was no going back. Amara stood frozen in the living room, Lily clutched to her chest, as Ngozi's confession hung in the air like a toxic fog. David, still by the door, looked as if he'd been struck, his eyes wide with disbelief. Ngozi sat on the couch, her posture eerily calm, a faint smile playing on her lips as if she'd unburdened herself of a lifelong weight. "What do you mean, you've been poisoning her life?" David asked, his voice low, trembling with barely contained rage. He stepped forward, his briefcase forgotten on the floor. "Explain yourself, Ngozi." Ngozi's eyes flicked to him, her smile sharpening. "Oh, David, you're so naive. You think Amara's struggles were chance? The friends who abandoned her, the jobs she lost, the way she always felt less? That was me, sowing seeds of doubt, of failure. I made sure she'd never rise too high." Amara's knees buckled, and she sank into a chair, her mind reeling. Memories flooded back, childhood taunts she'd thought were her fault, teenage heartbreaks orchestrated by subtle manipulations, moments where Ngozi's advice had left her doubting her worth. "Why?" she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I was a child. I didn't do anything to you." Ngozi leaned forward, her voice cold and deliberate. "You existed, Amara. You were Ada's child, a living proof of her betrayal. Every time I looked at you, I saw her laughing at me, stealing Emeka, my future. Raising you was my punishment, but I turned it into my revenge." David's fists clenched. "You're sick," he spat. "You hurt our daughter, your granddaughter, because of a grudge from 30 years ago?" Ngozi's laugh was sharp, cutting through the room. "Lily was your happiness, Amara. I couldn't let you have that. Not after everything I lost." Amara's vision blurred with rage and grief. She wanted to scream, to lunge at Ngozi, but Lily's soft breaths against her chest kept her grounded. She needed to protect her daughter, not lose herself to anger. "David," she said, her voice shaking, "call the police." "Now." David nodded, pulling out his phone with trembling hands. Ngozi didn't move, her eyes locked on Amara, as if daring her to break. "Go ahead," she said softly. "It won't undo what I've done." As David spoke to the dispatcher, Amara stared at the woman she'd called mother, a stranger now, her heart breaking for the child she'd been, the lies she'd lived. Ngozi's vengeance had been a slow, insidious poison, and Amara vowed it would end here. The police arrived within minutes, their boots heavy on the apartment's worn floorboards. Amara sat on the couch, Lily in her arms, as David handed over the vials and her diary, its pages filled with meticulous notes on Lily's symptoms. Ngozi remained silent, her hands cuffed behind her, her face a mask of defiance. The lead officer, a stern woman named Inspector Aisha, listened as Amara recounted Ngozi's confession, her voice breaking with each word. "She admitted to poisoning my daughter," Amara said, clutching the lab report she'd printed. "The vials tested positive for a toxin. She's not even my mother." Inspector Aisha's eyes softened, but her tone was firm. "We'll take her in for questioning. The evidence is strong, but we'll need to test the other vials and get medical records for your daughter. Can you come to the station tomorrow?" Amara nodded, her throat tight. As the officers led Ngozi away, she turned, her eyes meeting Amara's one last time. "You'll never be free of me," she whispered, her voice a venomous promise. Amara shuddered, holding Lily closer. David wrapped an arm around her, his face pale. "She's gone, Amara. She can't hurt us anymore." But Amara wasn't sure. Ngozi's words echoed, a reminder of the cruelty that had shaped her life. That night, after the police left, she sat at the kitchen table, David beside her, and poured out the rest of Ngozi's confession. "She sabotaged me, David," she said, her voice hollow. "Every failure, every heartbreak, she planned it. She wanted me to suffer." David's jaw tightened, his eyes glistening. "I should have listened to you sooner. I'm so sorry, Amara." She shook her head, tears falling. "You couldn't have known. She fooled everyone. But Lily, she almost took Lily from us." David reached for her hand, his grip fierce. "She didn't. Lily's here, and we'll make sure she's okay. We'll get through this." Amara clung to his words, but the weight of Ngozi's cruelty pressed down on her. She thought of the faded photograph in the locked box, the twin sister she'd never known. Ada. Who was she? Why had Ngozi's hatred consumed her so completely? The days blurred as Amara and David navigated the aftermath. Lily was admitted to a pediatric hospital for comprehensive tests, her tiny body subjected to scans and blood work. Dr. Okoye, their pediatrician, confirmed the toxin's presence in Lily's system, a slow-acting compound that caused chronic inflammation and organ stress. "She's lucky you caught it early," he said, his voice grave. "With treatment, she can recover, but we'll need to monitor her long-term." Amara sat by Lily's hospital bed, stroking her daughter's tiny hand, guilt gnawing at her. "I should have seen it sooner," she whispered to David, who stood by the window, staring out at the Lagos skyline. "You did everything you could," he said, turning to her. "You saved her, Amara. Don't let Ngozi's poison take that from you." But the betrayal cut deep. Amara couldn't stop replaying Ngozi's words, the chilling revelation that her entire life had been a battlefield for her mother's, her aunt's, vendetta. She contacted the police, requesting access to Ngozi's belongings, desperate for answers about Ada. Inspector Aisha sent her the photograph from a locked box, along with a note. "We found letters in her suitcase. They might help." The letters arrived the next day, yellowed and brittle. Amara read them late at night, David asleep on the hospital cot. They were from Ada to Ngozi, written decades ago, filled with love and regret. "I never meant to hurt you," Ada wrote in one. "Emeka and I fell in love, but I'd give it all up to have you back, my sister." Amara's tears fell onto the pages. Ada hadn't stolen Emeka maliciously. She'd loved him, and it had torn her apart to lose Ngozi. But Ngozi's hatred had twisted the truth, turning grief into a lifelong crusade. The ultimate betrayal wasn't just Lily's poisoning, it was Ngozi's choice to let vengeance define her, to destroy the child she'd raised as her own. Amara looked at Lily, her chest rising and falling with steady breaths, and whispered, "I'll never let anyone hurt you again. Not like she hurt me." The investigation deepened, and Amara's diary became a cornerstone of the case. The police tested the remaining vials, confirming they contained the same toxin. They traced its source to an illegal market in Lagos, where Ngozi had purchased it under a false name. The evidence was damning, but Ngozi remained uncooperative, refusing to speak during interrogations. Amara and David met with Inspector Aisha at the station, Lily cradled in a sling against Amara's chest. "She's not denying anything," Aisha said, sliding a file across the table. "But she's not helping either. We're charging her with attempted murder and child endangerment, based on the confession you recorded and the lab results." Amara's phone had been in her pocket during Ngozi's confession, capturing every word. She hadn't planned it, but the recording was a lifeline, a chilling testament to Ngozi's malice. "Will it be enough?" she asked, her voice tight. Aisha nodded. "With your testimony and the evidence, it's a strong case. The trial's set for next month." David squeezed Amara's hand. "What about the letters? Do they help?" "They paint a picture of motive," Aisha said. "Ngozi's obsession with her sister's betrayal drove her actions. It's not a defense, but it explains her state of mind." Amara left the station feeling hollow. The truth was unraveling, but it brought no comfort. That evening, she sat with David in their apartment, now eerily quiet without Ngozi's presence. "I don't know who I am anymore," she admitted, her voice breaking. "If she's not my mother, if my life was a lie." David pulled her close, his voice fierce. "You're Amara Okeke, Lily's mother, my wife. Ngozi doesn't get to define you. Not anymore." Amara nodded, but the words felt distant. She needed to reclaim her identity, to find Ada in the fragments Ngozi had left behind. She started searching online, contacting distant relatives who might know her biological mother's story, determined to piece together the truth. The trial began on a sweltering morning, the Lagos courtroom packed with reporters and curious onlookers. Amara sat in the front row, David beside her, their hands clasped tightly. Lily was with a trusted friend, safe from the media frenzy that had erupted when the story broke. Headlines screamed, "Grandmother's poison plot," and "Decades of deceit," turning their private pain into public spectacle. Ngozi sat at the defense table, her face impassive, her Ankara dress pristine. She hadn't spoken to Amara since her arrest, but her presence was a weight, a reminder of every lie, every hurt. The prosecution opened with Amara's recording, Ngozi's voice filling the courtroom, cold and triumphant as she confessed to poisoning Lily and sabotaging Amara's life. Amara took the stand, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. She recounted Ngozi's confession, the vials, Lily's symptoms, her own childhood under Ngozi's cruel manipulations. The prosecutor held up her diary, its worn pages a testament to her vigilance. "This saved your daughter's life," he said, and Amara's eyes filled with tears. The defense argued Ngozi's mental instability, claiming her actions were a product of untreated grief and delusion. But the evidence was overwhelming: the toxicology, the vials, the letters proving her motive. Amara watched Ngozi's face, searching for remorse, but saw only a flicker of defiance, a refusal to admit defeat. During a recess, a reporter cornered Amara in the hallway. "How do you feel, knowing your mother betrayed you?" he asked, his recorder thrust forward. "She's not my mother," Amara said, her voice firm. "She's a stranger who tried to destroy my family. But she didn't win." The trial lasted 2 weeks, each day a battle to expose Ngozi's lies. Amara and David clung to each other, their love for Lily a shield against the pain. When the jury retired to deliberate, Amara felt a strange calm. Whatever the outcome, she'd faced the truth, and Ngozi's power over her was gone. The courtroom was stifling, the air thick with anticipation as the jury filed back in after 3 hours of deliberation. Amara sat in the front row, her hand gripping David's so tightly her knuckles ached. Lily was with their friend Tolu, safe from the media circus that had turned their lives into a spectacle. Ngozi sat at the defense table, her face an unreadable mask, her Ankara head wrap pristine despite the weight of the charges against her. The judge, a stern man with graying hair, called for order. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" he asked. The foreman stood, a piece of paper trembling in his hands. "We have, Your Honor. On the charge of attempted murder, we find the defendant, Ngozi Okonkwo, guilty. On the charge of child endangerment, guilty." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Amara's breath caught, relief crashing over her like a wave. David pulled her close, his voice a whisper against her ear. "It's over, Amara. She can't hurt us anymore." Ngozi didn't react, her eyes fixed on the judge as he sentenced her to 25 years in prison, a term reflecting the calculated cruelty of her actions. As she was led away in handcuffs, she turned, her gaze locking onto Amara. "You'll never escape me," she mouthed, her lips curling into a faint smile. Amara shuddered, but she held her head high. "Yes, I will," she whispered to herself. The words were a vow, a promise to Lily and to the woman she was becoming. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, their questions a barrage. "Mrs. Okeke, how do you feel about the verdict?" one shouted, shoving a microphone in her face. Amara paused, her voice steady. "Justice was served for my daughter. That's what matters." She and David drove home in silence, the weight of the trial settling into something bittersweet. Justice for Lily had come at a cost, a lifetime of trust shattered, a family redefined by betrayal. That night, as Amara tucked Lily into her crib, she kissed her forehead, whispering, "You're safe now, my love. I'll make sure of it." But the victory felt hollow. Ngozi's words lingered, a shadow Amara couldn't shake. She needed to heal, not just for Lily, but for herself. Lily's recovery was a slow, fragile miracle. The hospital became a second home, its sterile halls filled with hope and fear. Dr. Okoye oversaw her treatment, a regimen of detoxifying medications and careful monitoring. The toxin had damaged her liver and kidneys, but her young body was resilient. "She's a fighter," Dr. Okoye said during a checkup, smiling at Lily's curious eyes. "Like her mother." Amara managed a weak smile. "She's everything to me." At home, Amara and David rebuilt their routines, clinging to normalcy. They took turns reading to Lily, singing her favorite lullabies, watching her smile return. But the scars of Ngozi's betrayal ran deep. Amara struggled with nightmares, waking in a cold sweat, haunted by Ngozi's chilling laugh or the image of those vials. One evening, as they sat on the balcony, the Lagos skyline glittering below, David broached the subject. "You're not okay, Amara," he said gently, his hand covering hers. "You're carrying this alone. Talk to me." Amara stared at the city lights, her throat tight. "I keep thinking about what she said. That I'll never escape her. What if she's right? What if her poison's still in me, in my head?" David turned her to face him, his eyes fierce. "She's wrong. You're stronger than her hate. You saved Lily. You exposed her. That's not her winning, that's you." Tears spilled down Amara's cheeks. But I didn't see it, David. I let her into our home. I trusted her. You loved her, he said softly. That's not a weakness. It's what makes you different from her. Amara nodded, wiping her eyes. David's words were a lifeline, but she knew she needed more. The next day, she booked an appointment with a therapist, Dr. Nkechi, a woman with a warm voice and a knack for cutting through pain. In their first session, Amara poured out her story, the words tumbling out like a flood. You've been through a trauma, Dr. Nkechi said, her eyes kind. But you're here, fighting for your daughter, for yourself. That's where healing starts. Amara left the session feeling lighter, a spark of hope igniting. Lily's recovery was her anchor, but she was beginning to see a path for herself, too. Amara's search for Ada, her biological mother, became a quiet obsession. The letters from Ngozi's suitcase were a starting point, but they weren't enough. She contacted distant relatives, piecing together fragments of Ada's life. Her aunt Ifeoma, who lived in Abuja, was hesitant at first, her voice tight over the phone. Ngozi never spoke of Ada after the accident, she said. It was like she erased her. Did you know I wasn't Ngozi's daughter? Amara asked, her heart pounding. Ifeoma sighed. I suspected. Ada and Emeka were so in love, and when she died, Ngozi changed. She became cold. But I didn't know about you, not for sure. Ifeoma sent Amara a box of Ada's belongings, photographs, a journal, a necklace with a tiny pearl pendant. Amara held the necklace, her fingers tracing its delicate chain. The journal was a treasure, filled with Ada's thoughts, her dreams, her love for Emeka and her unborn child, Amara. I want you to know joy, Ada had written in one entry. I want you to shine. Amara wept, feeling a connection to the mother she'd never known. She wore the necklace, a tangible link to Ada, and shared the journal with David. She wanted me to be happy, she said, her voice soft. All this time, I thought I was broken, but I was hers. David smiled, his eyes glistening. You are happy, Amara. Look at Lily. Look at us. They began rebuilding their family, piece by piece. They moved to a new apartment, a brighter space with big windows and a small garden, leaving behind the memories of Ngozi's presence. They hosted friends, laughed over dinners, and watched Lily take her first wobbly steps, her giggles filling the air. One night, as they lay in bed, Amara turned to David. I want to honor Ada, she said. I want to name our next child after her, if we have one. David kissed her forehead. I'd love that. Ada would be proud of you. Amara smiled, feeling a weight lift. She was no longer Ngozi's daughter, she was Ada's, and that truth was a foundation to build on. Forgiving Ngozi felt impossible. Her cruelty had left scars Amara would carry forever. But in therapy, Dr. Nkechi pushed her to confront a different kind of forgiveness, for herself. You blame yourself for not seeing Ngozi's true nature, Dr. Nkechi said during a session. But you were a child, then a mother doing her best. Let go of that guilt. Amara struggled with the idea. She sat by Lily's crib one evening, watching her daughter sleep, and whispered, I'm so sorry I didn't protect you sooner. The words felt like a release, a step toward healing. She began journaling, writing letters to Ada, pouring out her pain and her hopes. I wish I'd known you, she wrote. But I'm learning to live for you, for Lily, for me. The act of writing was cathartic, a way to process the years of manipulation and reclaim her narrative. David noticed the change. You're smiling more, he said one morning, as they shared coffee in their new kitchen. It's good to see. I'm trying, Amara said, her voice soft. I want Lily to grow up in a home full of love, not fear. I owe her that. You're giving her that, David said, his hand squeezing hers. You're giving it to all of us. Amara started volunteering at a local women's shelter, sharing her story to help others recognize hidden abuse. It was empowering, a way to turn her pain into purpose. She found strength in the women she met, their resilience mirroring her own. Slowly, she forgave herself, not for Ngozi's actions, but for believing she was unworthy of love. One day, she visited Ada's grave, a simple stone in a quiet cemetery. She placed flowers and the pearl necklace on the grave, tears falling. I'm okay, Mama, she whispered. I'm going to shine, just like you wanted. Amara, David, and Lily moved to Abaddon, a city of rolling hills and new beginnings. Their new home was a cozy bungalow, its walls painted bright yellow, a color that felt like hope. The move was a fresh start, a chance to leave behind the shadows of Lagos and Ngozi's betrayal. Amara enrolled in a counseling course, inspired by Dr. Nkechi to help others heal from trauma. She thrived, her compassion and strength drawing people to her. David's architecture firm took off, his designs reflecting the warmth of their new life. Lily grew stronger, her laughter a daily reminder of their resilience. One evening, as they sat in their garden, Lily chasing fireflies, Amara turned to David. "Do you think we'll ever forget what happened?" she asked, her voice soft. David shook his head. "We won't forget. But we're writing a new story now. Look at her." He nodded at Lily, who squealed as a firefly glowed in her hands. Amara smiled, her heart full. Their story had become a cautionary tale, shared in hushed tones across Lagos, a warning of hidden malice. But it was also a beacon of hope, proof that love could triumph over darkness. Amara had faced the worst betrayal, yet here she was, building a future unwritten, free from Ngozi's poison. As the stars emerged, Amara whispered to Lily, "You're my light, my love." And in that moment, she knew they'd won, not just against Ngozi, but for the life they deserved. The end.